But right along that same sign, remember, is when if the taxes don't get paid, let's revisit that little section there on tax sales. Remember, we have the right, or the city has the right to actually sell their lien, because a tax lien is nothing but a lien. And they have a day that's issued as, the tax lien sale. And I think we got one coming up. It's in October about every year. Yeah, they usually have one a year. There for a while, I think they had a couple a year. Remember not to get this confused, because they have several sales. This is not the sheriff's sale. The sheriff's sale is for foreclosure. They have those monthly. They also have a surplus real estate sale, where the state has taken property in through surplus or now holds it in surplus. They will sell that as well. Those are ad hoc. I don't know. They announce those and say, hey, in July we're going to have a surplus sale.
And what's the surplus sale again?
Surplus sale is just land that they have acquired through some means. Eminent domain, escheat, something, and the city had a plan for it and now does not. They will sell in surplus.
What happens if someone's like a drug dealer or something and they're able to prove that the property was bought with drug money?
That's the RICO Act. They can take property under the RICO Act.
How does that get sold though?
That gets sold at a surplus sale or an auction. That would be another way of acquiring real estate.
That fund usually goes into whatever agency busted the house.
Yeah, and there's a percentage of that.
Yeah.
We know a guy named Jack that's actually the procurer of all the stuff at Johnson County Jail. And when they collect money for on drug busts or stuff like that, they get a percentage of that. The police department does. To help defray some of their costs for new cars and new guns and new computers and things like that. So where were we? This is the tax lien sale. They announce the date in advance. They put the properties out in advance. Everybody gets a chance to know which property's coming. Up until the day of the tax lien, we have the right to go in and take the property out of the tax lien sale. You guys know what it's called? Equitable, because it's money, right? Equity means money. You have the right to go in and pay what's fair or the money you own. It's called the equitable right of redemption. And there's nothing they can do or say to stop you because you owe the money. Once the tax lien sale comes, in Indiana, we actually have a law, and the word for law is what? Statutory. There is a statutory right of redemption, which allows the person that got the property or had the property sold to redeem it, even though it got sold at the sale. What'd you say? Yeah. They actually do several now. Yeah. For 365 days after the property goes to the sale, you have the right to walk in and pay plus a fee, a late fee. The good thing is it's a guaranteed return because the law says it's got to be 12%. So you would go in and pay your fee plus a late fee plus 12%. All that money goes to the investor to recoup that investment. So whoever buys the tax lien, upside is they get the property, or the upside is they get 12% on the money. So there's really no downside per se, okay? Now, Dave, you said 12 months. They do a thing now called an A property. The first time it goes through, it's a 365-day. If it doesn't sell, it's a tax lien on the first time. They'll run it through again, and they call it a B property. It's got like 6 months redemption then. And they'll do it a third time. So they've got A, B, and C properties. And the C property is like 3 months. So they run them through a couple different times if no one buys the property. Now, I guess there could be a downside theoretically. When you buy the lien, you are only buying a lien. You're not buying an actual interest. You're buying a future interest. So literally, you buy the tax lien, you drive up to the house, and the guy's standing there. And I'm going to use a stupid example because that's probably not. But if he's setting the house on fire, there's nothing you can do. You don't have an actual ownership interest. You have a lien. You have to wait that 365 days. It's called an uninsurable interest. Now, once 365 days rolls by, they don't redeem the property, the state will send you a tax deed, and then it will be yours. But you can't really go in and do anything to the house in that time frame because it's not yours yet. It's still a interest or a lien.
Do you know if that percentage is paid no matter what, or if they pay, like, let's say you buy it at a tax sale and then in a month they pay it off to you, do you make the same amount of interest? Is it spread out over the period?
No, there is, and I think there's a formula. I think it's 12% for the first 6 months. If they redeem within the first 6 months, it's 12%. And it's 18 months or 15%. 18 or 15% in the 6 through the 12. All right? Now, the other thing to remember, though, it is an auction. You only get your benefit on the amount that was owed, not the overage. So if you're going into this concept as an investor to buy tax liens and earn 12% on your money, like some corporations do, they take their employees' pension funds and they buy tax lien certs because it's a guaranteed 12%. The thing you don't want to get caught up in is getting in a bidding war where you run that up and you buy a house for $800, but only 200 of it was tax lien. Because what's going to happen is if they redeem that, they only pay 12% on the 200. They give you your other 600 back flat. So, I mean, when you do that cost averaging, you end up making like 2%. So, which right now I guess is beating the hell out of my stock market account, but so just be careful that that benefit is only paid on the actual outstanding owed, not what you actually paid at the auction for. Okay? Homeowners associations are starting to be a big pain in the ass. Have you guys run into, what was the one that we ran into the other day? The homeowners association had to write a certificate to change the name of the owners, and they wanted like $360 to do that ownership transfer. Yeah. You know, the other thing I'm seeing is banks are not paying HOA when the banks are holding it. So they're not paying the HOA, then the HOA puts a lien on it, and when the new buyer comes in, they think, oh, I'm buying it for 10 grand or 20 grand, and then when the closing comes, they find out there's all these other, like the HOA, you owe us $380, and the bank's like, we're not paying it. You guys are all shaking your heads, so you guys have seen that too. That's another problem. The problem with HOAs, in my particular opinion, is these are something we've created that are turning around and biting us in the butt with these fees to do that kind of stuff. You know, I'm selling my house, and my HOA, which I built and vote on all that, is turning around charging me money to transfer the name or the certificate over to the new name. There should be a benefit of a company I own, which is theoretically what an HOA is. You know, I own a portion of that company. Condos have the same thing. The only difference between a condo association and a homeowners association is, remember all the common area? Condo associations typically buy the insurance on those. So in a condo, when I owned the condo over here, I had what we all euphemistically called renter's insurance. But even though I wasn't renting, I owned it. It's actually called contents and personal property, and I owned it from the drywall in. And from the drywall out, i.e. the studs, the bricks, and all that, was insured by the condo association, which I still paid for. We paid a percentage into the condo association to maintain the pool and the parking lot and the playground and all that, but also was part of the insurance. So the building was insured through the condo association, but my personal stuff was quote unquote renter's insurance, or the condo association, I'm sorry, or the contents and personal property type of insurance.
I've kind of learned about that too, that the flood insurance, the condo association will hold that because they're concerned about the exterior.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works for the people that live in there, what to get to cover if there's like a flood insurance just for contents and stuff.
Well, I will tell you, as a personal, something I found out about a month ago when my basement wall cracked and flooded, most any water that touches the ground first is not covered in your homeowner's insurance anyway. Our insurance lady told us it literally would almost have to rain in your house, because if it hits the ground, it's then groundwater and all kinds of stuff. Because our basement wall buckled and seeped down the wall and made the floor wet on our basement. We tried to make a claim, and they're like, it's not covered.
So it would have to be like your pipe burst or something like that.
Yeah.
In order for your homeowners to cover it.
Yeah. And then they would probably try and say it was delinquent on your part. So, the further conditions, this is where it starts getting hairy. And we had talked about earlier about not signing or not creating contracts. You know, then we start getting into this further conditions, and all of a sudden you find us start writing stuff in. You know, oh, my client wants to keep this, or my client wants to get rid of that, or he wants you to do this. I don't know where the line is drawn about how many words you can say that's not considered writing a contract. I don't know. I mean, if you put I want to, or my client wants to have the washer and dryer as part of the purchase price, is that writing a contract? I don't know. But I know that you can't go out and write a land contract. So there's a whole bunch of words you probably can't do, but those 6 are okay. Seller wants to keep, or buyer wants to keep. Buyer wants washer and dryer. I don't know. But that's a further condition. We don't talk about contingencies in here, but we might want to. I was dealing with this in the day class today, and I forgot about one of the stories. I don't know if I even told you guys the one where the guy wrote the offer contingent upon his wife signing within 24 hours. And we actually picked her up at the airport. Yeah. It was back when, you know, if you were breathing, you could get a loan. It was like 79th and Meridian. Guy called me and wanted to go buy a house. We went and looked at the house. He's standing in the house. He's like, I like the house. I want to buy it. My wife's not here. She's a salesman. She's gone. So we wrote an offer subject to his wife approving it within the next 48 hours and the full price, and they accepted the offer. Well, like the next evening,
She comes in like,
no, it actually worked out really good. But she landed at the airport. I met David at his house, and we went to the airport and got to pick her up. So she, you know, we're standing there, and she comes out, and she's like, hi, honey, because, you know, I had to wait a certain spot. She's like, hey, he goes, who's this? And I'm standing there, hi, this is our realtor, we got to go. We literally picked her up at the airport and went straight to the house. She had the suitcase in the car and still looking at the property. It didn't even go home yet. Straight to the house, looked at it. She signed off, we ended up buying and closing on it. But I mean, that's an example of a contingency that you can use, and that's probably the weirdest one I've used in a long time. Was subject to the wife approving it within 48 hours. And I called the other guy when I submitted the offer. I told him, hey, here's what's going on. He doesn't want to lose the house, but his wife's not here. And we got to laughing. I said, you know, we could have signed her name, and hell, you'd have never known it. He's like, well, I appreciate you at least being honest about that. Now that I look back, I think that would be illegal.
illegal or just frowned upon?
Yeah. Is it illegal or frowned upon? Actually, I think if you do it with the intent, if there's no intent to defraud, I don't know if it's illegal or not. The problem you get into is when they start fighting.
So like walking out to the car and signing a document, going back in or whatever you want?
Yeah. And asking, are you calling me a liar? You know how, was it over half of all people that are arrested on tax evasion, you know who turns them in? Yeah. Over half are turned in by their spouse. What's the old saying about a woman scorned? Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, which literally cost that one guy life in jail. Although he deserved it, the guy that hit that pedestrian, what, number of years ago? This was just, come on, David, help me out here. You're a political fan. This was just like last summer.
Yeah.
Remember, he and his wife got divorced.
Philip Pike, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he hit the girl like 6 or 7 years ago, and they had managed to keep it quiet and hush-hush, and he had thought he had, quote-unquote, dodged it, and then when they got divorced, she found some of the evidence and turned it in, and he got arrested. And I think he's actually now doing time for it. But it was turned in by his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. Personally, I would think if they haven't found one, they wouldn't have found two, but it's neither here nor there. All right, any questions on the purchase agreements?